Okay, so we're going to look at how it works, negative exponents. Now we're going to be exploring negative exponents through powers of 2, 1/4, powers of 10, and a percent here. All right, let's start with powers of 2. So we know that 2 to the third is 8, and 2 squared is 4th. We're seeing an expanded form here. Any number raised to the first power is just itself here. We only have 1, 2. So simplified, that would just be 2. Now, 2 to the 0 is 1, right? And so for each of these, you can imagine an invisible times 1, right? So 1 times 2 to the third, 1 times 2 squared, 1 times 2. 2 to 0 means that there's 0 2's, but there's still that 1. Now, what does 2 to the negative 1 mean? That's something that we're going to be exploring here, okay? Let's take a look at 1/4 here. All right. So 1/4, right? We know that's 0.25. Goes out to the hundredths place. And you can express that as 25 over 100 then. You could also express that as 1 over 2 squared, right? Since 2 squared is 4 here. So these is showing a few different representations of a quarter here. All right, we're going to come back to this. All right, powers of 10. We've talked a lot about this. You guys might remember from one of our Wednesday classes where we looked at the different photos, right? 1 times 10 to the third meters, that's 1,000 meters or 1 kilometer. That's roughly 0.6 of a mile. 1 times 10 squared is 100 meters. It's about 1 football field. 1 times 10 to the 1 is 10 meters. That's the length of your math classroom there. And then here we see that power of 0 again. 1 times 10 to the 0 would just be 1 meter. Kind of picture that meter stick. So again, the question is, what would this negative exponent be? And that's something that we're going to explore. All right. Now, percent. We did the Krusty Krab problem where we had this headline: 7% of Americans eat at the Krusty Krab every day. In part B, they said there are about 3 times 10 to the 8th people in the US. What is 7% of that? So we know the decimal value for 7% is 0.07. And so we express that as 7 times negative 2. So we looked at powers of 2, powers of 10, percents, 1/4. We're trying to explore how these negative exponents work then. All right. So here was a couple of the tables we looked at, right? 2 to the 0 is just 1 here. And then 2 to the negative 1, we would express as 1 over 2, or 0.5, right? 2 to the negative 2 would be 1 over 2 squared, or 1/4 that we looked at, which we know is 0.25. You can even test this on a calculator, right? What's 2 to the negative 1 and 2 to the negative 2, right? That should come out as either 0.5 or 0.25. And so we can see how the 2 is written in the denominator here. And for 2 to the negative 2, we had a 2 squared in the denominator. Likewise, right? So 1 times 10 to the 0 is just 1 meter. 1 times 10 to the negative 1 would be 1/10 of a meter, or 10 centimeters. 1 times 10 to the negative 2 would be 1/100th of a meter, 1 centimeter. And because it's 1/100th, that's why we were able to use 10 to the negative 2 for that 7% problem. So what that means is that anytime you have a negative number, no matter what the number is, you're going to express it in the denominator with the positive exponent then. Now, what if the exponent was negative in the denominator? Then you would have this fraction inside of a fraction, and that doesn't work. Anytime you're divided by a fraction, you can express that as multiplying by the reciprocal, or the flipped version of that fraction. And you see that would just be 2/3 then. So if the negative exponent is in the denominator, you can then just express it as a single power then. All right, this has been an exploration of negative exponents. Thanks for watching.